Hi, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Science World's online family event series, where for the next few months, we're going to be taking a closer look at the science all around us in our backyards and communities as part of our upcoming Backyard Adventures feature exhibition here at Science World, which will be opening to the general public on September the 29th. My name is Dana, and I'm the curator of the upcoming feature exhibition, Backyard Adventures. I'm going to be your host today for our online family event. I'm also joined here in the studio beside me by Madeline, and Madeline's going to be making sure that everything runs smoothly behind the scenes for our event today. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by two of our feature guests for this event, who will be talking to us a little bit more about exploring nature using some easy to use, free and fun apps, iNaturalist and Find the Birds. But before we meet our featured guests today, I would like to start off by gratefully acknowledging that Science World, where we're broadcasting today, is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we'd like to pay our respects to our Indigenous leaders of this territory, past, present, and emerging. This is a great time to introduce our guest today. Today, we're going to be joined by Claudia Copley from Vancouver Island. And we're also going to be joined by Adam Dalla today. And they're going to be talking a little bit more about their work and their use of some pretty cool apps that you can use to explore nature. Claudia is going to be talking a little bit more about the iNaturalist app and how she uses it in her work at the Royal BC Museum on Vancouver Island. And Adam, he was a future science leader here at Science World, which is a cool program that we have for youth to become more involved in science. We also have a super science club as well for some younger audience members out there. Well, Adam, as part of this experience, created a cool app that he's going to be talking about today, about exploring nature. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome them to the screen. Let's welcome Claudia Copley and Adam Dalla. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Claudia.
Did Adam make it? Oh, there he.
Yes, I do see him in, and we will be hearing from Adam a little bit later. I don't see him on the screen at the moment, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Excellent. All right, Claudia, we're excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work.
Sure. I'm just going to share the screen and start my presentation.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, and I want to move this down here. All right, good. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I'm coming to you from the unceded territory of the WSÁNEĆ people. I live in the southern half of Vancouver Island, the southern bit, and it's beautiful ecosystem of Garry oaks and camas, and the traditional uses of the plants and animals that lived here are really important to me because I'm trying to restore the property that I live on as part of my effort towards truth and reconciliation. So, and the municipality I live in is named after the WSÁNEĆ people, but it's been changed a little bit to be Saanich. So it's a beautiful area. It's very different from anyone who's coming from the lower mainland. You guys don't have the oaks and the dry that we have. You have a lot more rain. So anyway, but people might be from anywhere in the province. So I didn't check the chat to see where people are coming from. Today, I'm going to talk to you about iNaturalist, and some of you may already know about it, and then also talk about a project that I've been working on, and then maybe how you might want to get involved with that project or just more generally. So let me just start the show. Where is my, there, okay. Does everybody see the screen okay? Good. So the first thing is, what is iNaturalist? So it's basically the Instagram for nature nerds, or it's definitely a social media. And if you don't think that people are engaged in it, just look at some of these numbers. So what it is people make observations of nature in nature and then upload what they've been seeing, and they can keep track of it. And this was originally designed by the California Academy of Sciences and National Geographic, both of which are probably names that, if you're interested in science, you've heard of those places. And to date, so there are 78 million observations. This is just a screenshot of their homepage. And then only about 340, almost 350,000 species have been observed so far. So that's pretty impressive. They obviously aren't looking at enough insects, because they'd get a lot more numbers then. And then down below here, there's a quick little summary of how it works. If you have a smartphone, or you can use a regular camera, take an image of something you see in nature, and when you've uploaded it, you'll basically be sharing that information with the world. And people will comment on it, you'll learn more about it, and I just think it's super cool. I have to say, I was a bit of an unbeliever when it first began, because I didn't think that it could handle entomology, which is the study of insects and what I love, as well as it does. It's become very smart. So who uses it besides me? Well, 4 million plus people are using iNaturalist. So they've got a profile page, they've signed up, they've added some images. So you can do the image adding with the camera, and or you can use your iPad or your smartphone, and you can interact with the program using all those devices, including a laptop or a desktop. So it's pretty user-friendly. Almost any way you want to interact with it, you'll be able to. And you can keep track of your sightings, crowdsource identifications, anything you think of with nature, you can do with iNaturalist. It's very helpful for learning more too. So there's lots of profiles of the types of people who are using iNaturalist. It's a global project, so people everywhere around the world are engaged in it. It's really impressive. So the very first thing you need to do is make sure your phone, if you're using a phone, or your camera has the geolocation feature turned on. That's an important feature, but I'm going to run through. So you've turned on that, and you've added the app to your phone, or to your, you've interacted with it on your home computer. This is what the app looks like on your phone. So if you've taken a picture, you open the app. The next step is at the bottom, you can see you can choose to look at your images that you've already taken. You have a couple of choices there though, because you can also listen to a sound and record the sound right there while you're out in the world. If a Buick's wren starts to sing and you didn't know it was a Buick's wren, you can record the sound and upload it. And I promise you, iNaturalist will know that it was a Buick's wren. You can take a photo, or you can work in your photo library. So maybe you took a photo when you were on vacation and it was months ago, but you're all of a sudden like, oh, I wonder what that butterfly was. Then you can go to that photo and upload it. And when you go to your photo library, which is what I'm going to demonstrate here, you can upload with a smartphone. You can upload 4 images at a time. With your home computer, laptop, you can do hundreds. And there are a couple of things I just want to point out. This default button is an important feature that you might not notice right away. But if you go to what did you see, and you try to get suggestions, and this photo that it's defaulted to isn't a very good one or not ideal, then you can default to different ones. And when you've defaulted to all of them and you're getting sort of the same answer over and over, then you can feel pretty comfortable that the answer is likely correct. So the what did you see feature, not everyone notices that, and it's really helpful because you might not know what this is. It's just a green caterpillar. There's probably 5,000 green caterpillars in the world that look similar to this, and I didn't know what it was when I took this picture. I also should say that your photos don't have to be that good, but the better your photo, the better the identifications are. So it takes what you took a picture of, looks at the default photo, and the artificial intelligence of the program, the facial recognition part of it recognizes what it might be. So in this case, green caterpillars, like I said, there might be 5,000 of them. So it didn't know for sure which green caterpillar based on my photos. And it gave me a few choices. And it also had the nearby feature on. And that's important because you don't really want all over the world green caterpillars. You want green caterpillars in your neighborhood where the photo was taken. So I look at these and I know that these aren't wasps. It's not a wasp caterpillar, which 2 of these are. And I also knew that it wasn't the eyed sphinx because all the sphinx moths, all their larvae have a little horn off the rear end. You might not know that. You might have to explore more than with some things than others. But I thought, okay, well, this white dotted prominent is a very good guess compared to these other 3. So I went to the information button and I wanted to learn more about that species just to see what I thought. And I scrolled through the photos once I got the information page open, and I found a caterpillar and I thought, wow, that looks a lot like my caterpillar. And when I look at the distribution map down below, I can see that it also occurs in the region and it's relatively common. So then I selected it and I've decided that's what it is, and I'm going to share that record with the world. And so it goes up onto my iNaturalist profile, and that's what this page looks like, but this is from a computer, a screenshot from a computer. And this is all part of the project that I have to restore our yard to what it was historically and trying to encourage wildlife to use our yard. So I'm just going to zoom in on that page, the home page, my home page, and I'll show you a few things here so that you might, so this one, no one else has committed to what they think that might be. And that's okay. There are a lot of caterpillars, as I said, that are green. So that's a hard one. And it may never make it to what's called research grade. But research grade is when other people also weigh in on your identification. So I thought it was a great horned owl. I knew it was. And within seconds, 5 other people also thought it was a great horned owl, and they were pretty excited to tell me. So this has got to research grade. This fly got to research grade, so that's helpful. This very terrible photo of black-throated gray warbler is at research grade, but the spiders haven't all been. And I just wanted to say, there's a research grade means it goes into a global mapping program that's online, and it helps with distributions for all species that are ever noted on iNaturalist and get to that level. And so it's also feeding into research all over the world. And just to make that point a little more, after I see a great horned owl or any owl, it immediately gets collected by this Owls of the World project, with the goal of which is to map distributions of all the different owls, non-captive owls. So if you're at the zoo and you take a picture of an owl, you shouldn't put it up on iNaturalist. But if you're out in the wild and you see a great horned owl and you take a picture, then it will become part of this other project, which is getting back to that, who's using it? And the same thing with another project, which is called this Pollinator Associations project, where they're interested in what is visiting which flowers, what species visit fireweed in the case of the pine white, or that orange spotted dronefly is visiting an aster flower. And they want to know those associations. They're interested in all the different organisms that pollinate and all the different plants that offer something to pollinators. So it's all happens automatically, and if you get involved with iNaturalist, your sightings will get collected in this way. And comes another project right here. If you want to learn more about the different projects, you can go to community and you can just scroll through them. And like this Found Feathers project, if you find a feather and you post it on iNaturalist, the Found Feathers project will collect it and offer IDs of the feathers. But if you're really interested in snakes, then you can put snakes in the search right here and see all the different projects that are about snakes. And if you ever take a photo, the first known photo of a living specimen, there's a project for that. So there are projects all over the world. Everybody's got a different one. I have one for our yard, and I have helped set one up at the nearby park, and I've been involved in many others. So the one that you might accidentally get involved with. You might not even know. After you've joined iNaturalist, you might go to a provincial park and there's a great big project, all the province, every park in the province, every sighting of iNaturalist sightings that get uploaded get collected by this BC Parks Nature Challenge. And you can see the leaderboard. For some reason, Strathcona Provincial Park is in the lead for the number of observations, but they don't really, so far, overall, this project hasn't seen that many species, only about 8,000 species so far. So you can really help contribute, start taking pictures of bugs, and then you'll have a lot more sightings to report for BC Parks, because they, there are only so many bear sightings. So then we come back to, well, how does this fit in with what I do? And I work at the Provincial Museum, and I hope some of you have visited it. It's got the mammoth, if that helps. Remember when you've come, it's in downtown Victoria, and the mammoth is our most famous member even. But I work in the tall building beside the exhibits building in the collections area.
Even if we aren't able to get out to Vancouver Island to see your building or learn more about your work, your work's actually going to be featured here at Science World as part of our upcoming Backyard Adventures exhibit.
Yeah, that's right, a little bit. So the work that we're doing at the museum is integrated with the BC Parks project, and that's how the connections are made with the exhibit that'll be at Science World. Thanks, Dana. So we have this project that 3 of us have been working on for at least 10 years now, and we're trying to determine what spiders live in British Columbia, where they live, and what lives here. And so the 3 of us, there's myself, and then Darren, who I am married to, and then Dr. Rob Bennett in the middle. And we've gone all over the province to try to find all the different species of spiders we can. And we were trying to go to places people don't go, because a lot of work has been done along roads and in the southern half of the province, but not so much in the far north and at the high parts of the mountains. So for the last few summers, we get helicoptered in to a site, and we're left there for 3 or 4 days, and we have to camp whether it snows or not, and collect everything we can. So we collect all the spiders we can find, and we also collect insects and other invertebrates on these trips. And we go with botanists, and the botanists collect a lot of botanical specimens. So we make a very thorough survey of the place that we were left for 3 days, and then we get picked up and get taken out of there. And sometimes it rains the whole time. So you might wonder, well, what have you found? And well, we think that there are about 1,000 species of spiders in British Columbia, and so far we're at about just over 900. And we've been adding about 20 new species a year. And you can see the map of where the greater diversity is, and the southern interior has the greatest diversity, and much less as you get farther north. But partly things like the Taiga Plains, there are no roads, so it's very difficult to survey in there, and they're not mountainous either. It's kind of a flat area. I want to reassure people though, because when people see a number like 908 species of spiders, they worry. But this is a full-grown spider, and this is a fingernail. So this spider is never going to get any bigger than that, and about 500 of the species of the 900 are that little, and that is an incredibly difficult size to work with. And we find them most typically underneath rocks, or if we're in a nice, beautiful old forest, we'll find them deep in the moss layer. So we have to have extraction techniques for that. And because we're talking about iNaturalist, I want you to know about this iNaturalist project that we have, where citizens, community members can add to the spider record. So if you take photos of spiders that we are able to identify, then they will be captured in the Spider Diversity of British Columbia project. And it's tricky because a spider, this is a great way to get photos of the really beautiful, charismatic big spiders or colorful spiders, the ones that make the beautiful webs, but it doesn't help us as much with the wee spiders that are small enough to fit on your fingernail. And we have a different project for that. So this one collects any research grade spider identification anywhere in the province, And this one is a little bit more targeted. So this is for people who take very good close-up photos of the spiders in a lot of different positions. And then they put those on iNaturalist, and they also collect the spider and send it to us. And these two guys, Darren and Rob, have to work with microscopes and very tiny spiders under the microscopes, and they have to be mature male or a mature female in order to identify them. And then that connection between that image and the positive identification is made, and the spider lives on forever in the collection as part of the collection, even though it's preserved and it has a label and it's a museum specimen. And this is the intent of this, is that we can help iNaturalist, the software, become smarter at identifying spiders, because there are so many apps that are so useful for identifying other things like flowers or trees or birds, which you're going to hear about next. But spiders are really challenging still. So we're hoping to make the app smarter for spiders, so no spiders have to be collected in the future, just like no one has to collect birds now because they have eBird, or they have, you know, what's another bird app? Well, the one we're going to learn about next, Finding the Birds. Perfect. Over to you, Dana.
Thanks, Claudia. That was a great to introduce our next guest. But before we do that, we just want to say another thank you for sharing with us about how to use iNaturalist. I mean, I've had it on my phone for a little while, but I find that I've learned more just by listening to you, and can actually use that app a lot better than I was using it before, that's for sure. And next, as you mentioned, we're going to hear from Dalla, a young mind out there who has created an app to learn a little bit more about birds called Find the Birds. So Adam, welcome, Adam.
I'm Dalla, and first of all, yeah, amazing presentation, Claudia. Yeah, I like you, Dana. I'm like an amateur iNaturalist user. I'm more used to, Claudia briefly mentioned a program called eBird, which is kind of iNaturalist specific to bird species. It's managed by the Cornell lab. I know that a lot better, but I think it's really, really cool that a program exists like that for all species. And I guess the scientific importance of that is hard to overstate. Yeah, it was really cool introduction to it. It makes me want to get started on it more. Anywho, I guess I should present what I'm going to present. As was quickly mentioned, I am developing a game called Find the Birds, and I'm going to share a presentation about it right now. Boom. Okay, and let's present that. Does that look good to everyone? Thumbs up. All right, thumbs up. Okay, so Find the Birds is exactly what it says on the title. It's a free educational mobile game about birds and conservation. And I'll be kind of telling the story of how I was able to co-create it, and how it's kind of gone from being just a concept and some artwork several years ago to an actual game that you can download in the App Store right now. And the details of that will be at the end of the presentation. All right, so I've been interested in birds and nature and just naturalism in general for many, many years. Probably started, right now I'm 16. It started probably when I was around, well, my interest in nature started from a very young age, but birds specifically around 7 or 8. I think the thing I always point to as one of my big starting points was here in Vancouver, we had an influx in snowy owls because of shortages in lemming in the north. So they all flew down here, and there's lots of news about them showing up in random places like on condos and people's apartment patios. And but we went to see them at Boundary Bay, which is a local place, and I think that really sparked my interest. But anyways, so I've been kind of interested in birds and photographing birds and observing birds since then. And in my time in this kind of local bird watching amateur naturalist community, I've noticed a few things, more importantly, 2 important things. Number one, there often lacks a concrete connection to conservation efforts from birding. So you can have a lot of people really interested in listing and observing bird species, but there's often kind of a link missing to how we can actually help these birds and how to learn about conservation efforts ongoing to help these birds. But more importantly, number two is the lack of younger people in the amateur naturalist and bird watching space. And especially since we're looking to our future leaders to lead the way in terms of climate and biodiversity, we need to get younger people involved in these things so that when they lead in the future, they'll keep these things in mind. So yeah, it's almost a double trouble because you're almost seeing young people get less and less interested in nature as technology begins to get bigger and bigger. So development of the idea, a game about birds and conservation, started around 2015. I co-created with my dad. I think it's a pretty natural idea to create a game about birds, although it might not seem like it at first, because looking for birds and animals in general, it kind of is like a game, because you're trying to collect different species and you're traveling to different locations, and I think it kind of fits pretty well into the concept of the game. So you can see at the very beginning, the artwork was pretty rough. I think I was around 10 or 11 when I drew this artwork on the left here that I'm kind of pointing my cursor around, but it kind of shows a general idea. You control a little character in a 2D space and you walk it back and forth and you look at birds. I also drew this little field guide thing, and the idea was that these are all real bird species, and then you would tap them or you would collect them and then see them in their field guide and you get to learn about them, and that's kind of where the educational aspect would come in. You can see that my art style changed pretty drastically over the first few years. The more geometric stuff on the right is from around 2018, 2019-ish. And you can see that's changed quite a lot. We got a Cape May warbler and an iwi from Hawaii down here in the little artworks. And the key pillars are really real life locations, real life bird species, and a mix between educational and entertaining. All right. Just to get a better picture of how my art style kind of has developed over the course of the game, we kind of got an earlier rendition of a California condor, which is an iconic endangered species of bird down in southeastern Arizona. And yeah, so on the left, we got a more geometric style that I did in 2019, and in 2021, oopsies, slide before, 2021, we got a slightly more realistic look that ended up being the thing that was actually put into the final game. But what is the final game? Well, in 2021, we were lucky enough, and up until this point, we were applying to grants at all sorts of government institutions and organizations, but we actually finally got one in 2021, in January of 2021, so early this year, from the government of Canada. So this allowed us, for the first time in forever, to actually put together a team of skilled animators and coders, because I know how to draw birds, but that's about it. I know how to code, but for different uses and not games. So we needed a team to put together an actual production level game that we could get out there and be proud of. So here's just a nice little clip that I always like to show that our animators put together for kind of in development of the first level of the game, which was released in April this year. I'll give a little more detail on that first level soon. These are two vermilion flycatchers, which are kind of an iconic bird of the Southwest. And they're perched on a saguaro cactus, which is a really iconic plant of the Southwest as well. So we chose Arizona to be the location of the first level in the game for a few different reasons. We have good contacts there, and as well as that, it's just a really amazing place to be a naturalist and go birding, because there's incredible diversity, especially in terms of bird life over there. So yeah, that's our first level, is Arizona. We released in April. Here's another just a little quick clip of the character that you can control walking across different landscapes and the level at different times, just to kind of get a little quick idea of how the movement works in the game. Oops. Just to kind of hit on that point from earlier, that we want to create realistic bird species that are identifiable by people who know birds. Like if a person who knows birds would see the thing on the left, which is a beautifully animated version of that California condor drawing. You can see that's the exact same one that I drew over here, but just animated by the animators. You can see that this is actually pretty similar to the real life California condor on the right. And same thing with the varied bunting, which is another beautiful Southwestern bird. You can see that it's, it's got that kind of cartoonish look to it that I want to put into these birds to kind of be a little interesting, but definitely identifiable, and you're not losing any educational value through the kind of characterization of these birds. Hitting on the other point that still remains the same from the very outset of the game in 2015 is prioritizing realistic information. Too often we have either completely false information on birds being put out there in media. So really wanted to make a game that was accurate. And on the right, we have what we do is when you see a bird in the game, you get to collect a collector's card of it. And as you see the bird more, you add more and more information to that collector's card. So this is a collector card, but the first half of it goes down quite low. You can scroll on your phone. Of a white-winged dove, which is another iconic Southwestern bird. And we were able to partner with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to supply the photos of the birds, as you can see here, and lower down, we have audio of the bird songs and a quick clip of the bird as well. So yeah, so it's kind of like a little virtual field guide for the 14 or so birds in the level. The other thing that we also want to prioritize, as I said at the beginning, is this kind of connection to conservation. So concrete connection to conservation, because bird watching is great, but if there's no birds to watch, then, you know, that's the whole point of bird watching is, I think, should lead to meaningful conservation action. And that's what we try to instill in this game. So in the Arizona level specifically, one of the activities is removing invasive plants, more specifically this plant right here called buffalo grass, which is a really invasive species down south in Arizona, which basically grow really quickly and they kind of just completely overrun a habitat, and then they're super flammable. So fire spreads super quickly through the plants and destroys actual native plants that live amongst them. But we also have other ideas for conservation quests, like placing nest boxes and doing shoreline cleanups and even reintroducing species. Just to get a quick idea on what the gameplay actually is when you play the game, just, you know, give a quick outline of it. You get points by seeing birds and tapping them on your screen, and you collect points that you get from looking at these birds to travel to new parts of the map. And as you find birds multiple times, you gather more information on them, as I mentioned, and you do conservation quests to kind of make the habitat more attractive to birds, and, you know, therefore get more birds and get more points. And then as you progress through the game, you'll be able to go to different locations at different times. So you'll be able to, if you play the Arizona level, you'll be able to visit Arizona at night and perhaps see a few special night birds, hint owls. And here's just a nice little screenshot that I like from one of the locations in the Arizona level where you're on a bridge and you can view California condors. Just kind of a sneak peek of what's coming next for the game, and coming very soon, is a British Columbia level where the player gets to, or you get to explore British Columbia habitats and birds. And yeah, so this is just a little screenshot. It will be released late September. So if you download the game now, you'll just have to update it and you'll get the game in the same, you'll get the new level in the same game. And here's the character on a boat, because there'll be kind of a boat trip that you can take to view pelagic birds like albatrosses. And here's just a fun little clip of the character walking through one of the habitats and looking at a western meadowlark. There it goes. It's going to come back in 3, 2, 1, and it's back. There we go. And yeah, so as you see the bird, you get the card as it just popped up there. And yeah, just a little sneak peek, but you'll be able to access the Arizona level, which is completely done. And yeah, you'll be able to get this level soon if you download the game now. Just to kind of wrap up with a few statistics and info, and maybe gauging the success of the game as a conservation tool, conservation education tool, since we launched in April this year. It's being played by thousands in 45 countries in 6 continents. And the thing we're probably the most proud of is that there's no advertisements and no in-app purchases. So the game is also free, obviously. And we really want to do this to get the highest possible accessibility of the game, even though it's perhaps a lot harder to keep the game self-sufficient through this method, and we still have to kind of rely on grants and organizations helping us out. But I think to make this material accessible and to have some sort of resource that can educate and get people excited about birds is really the goal here. So to do anything that would hinder that would be to stray from our goal. It's found lots of success introducing young people to birding conservation happily. I've heard lots of anecdotes of people who are interested in birds, like grandparents and parents, using this game to introduce their grandkids and kids to birds. And then I've often heard stories of using this game and playing through it and getting excited about birds, but then actually going outside and looking at birds in nature and not just birds, but just getting interested in nature in general and conservation in general. And that's really the main goal of this game. It's not the end goal for people to just play this game and be done with it, but it's to act as a stepping stone to meaningful interest in conservation and naturalism. Some extra kind of bonus points here. It's zero carbon. The development of the game is zero carbon because we work remotely. The team works remotely, and it's COVID safe, both for the players and our team making the game because it's remote, but it's also a good way to get kids interested in birds, and not just kids, everyone. All sorts of age ranges enjoying this game. Anyways, that about summarizes my presentation. Thanks for listening, and I'd love to listen to your questions shortly.
I just recently downloaded this app after I learned more about it from Adam just a little bit earlier this week. And I've already had a lot of fun just scrolling through it and learning a little bit more. And like Adam mentioned, this and as well as iNaturalist that Claudia was walking you through a little bit earlier are really great ways to get out and explore nature, learn a little bit more about it, but also in a way that is COVID safe at this time during the pandemic. If we can get Claudia back now joining us as well. We're going to start asking you some questions from our studio audience here, Claudia and Adam. First question that we have for you from our side is, what is your favorite bird for Adam? And Claudia, since you talked about spiders, what is your favorite spider and why? So whoever would like to go first, we want to know.
Let Adam go first.
As I always mention when I get this question, is like it changes month for month. So when I say something now, you'll ask me in like a month, it'll be different because they're birds, they're all great. But definitely one that always kind of is my go-to in terms of favorite bird is the black oyster catcher, which is a really cool bird here on the Pacific coast. And you'll see it from the back and you'll think it's just a crow, but it's completely black, kind of a brownish black. And then you get your binoculars out, it's still a crow, but then I'll turn around and you get this huge, massive orange bill. There's actually a drawing of one that I drew on this banner behind me. It's kind of just barely peeking out from behind my bed. You can see the tip of it there, the black with the orange bill. But yeah, search up pictures after this. They're pretty crazy birds. But yeah, this huge carrot orange bill on this all black bird, and they also have some funky pink legs as well. So they're just a really funny looking bird, and they're actually globally threatened in terms of numbers. There's only around 10,000 of them in the world, which is low for a bird species. So yeah, it's a good bird. They're threatened by the lack of habitat for intertidal zones. So they're also a good bird of conservation interest. So yeah, all around cool bird.
All right. I got to admit, I see a lot of oyster catchers around this area, and they are pretty neat to watch. And that's coming from someone who's not a big bird fan. I don't not like birds, but I'm not quite as passionate as Adam about birds. Claudia, how about you?
Well, I can't decide on a particular favorite, but I think that what we call the gateway spiders are the jumping spiders. So for a lot of people, when they look at the bright colors and the dance moves that the males make, which are very elaborate, they tap their front legs and then raise their back legs at the same time and make weird noises with their jaws, all these elaborate dances with all the bright colors that can be around their face and on the inside of their legs. I think that the jumping spiders are a great gateway to spiders. And if anyone's out there who's wondering, well, I want to see a dancing jumping spider, they should Google peacock spider, and then they will see a magical dancing spider. You can't even believe it, that it's real. They live in Australia.
That's pretty neat. I think it goes to show that if you are a nature lover, that is really hard to pick.
Yeah.
I think that I hear a very similar answer from a lot of nature lovers out there, certainly. And we do have a little bit of time for one last question, and Claudia, and that's what's next for you? So what projects do you have on the go? What is the big next thing lined up?
Yeah, I guess I could take this one first. As I mentioned at the end of the presentation, the BC level is like the closest thing in the near future. Around the end of September, then BC level will be launched, and doing some of the bird artwork. Well, I already did all the bird artwork for that. And further in the future, definitely keep an eye out on the findthebirds.com website. That future levels will be available there, and there definitely will be future levels sometime next year after the BC level, which is kind of the next big update. So on the game, that's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love that you're introducing and expanding new levels. I'm particularly interested, based on the artwork that you just showed us, to check out that BC level for sure. Claudia, how about you?
Yeah, so what we've been doing and hope to have available for people to poke around in next are maps, clickable maps, so that when you're in a particular area, say you're in Kelowna and you take a picture of a cool spider, because they're all cool, and then you're like, well, I think it might be this, and then you go to this map and you can click on that genus and see which ones live where you are, and then that will help narrow down your choices. So it'll work hand in hand with iNaturalist and another really cool website that I have nothing to do with, but I really love, called Bug Guide. And yeah, so that's the next thing, is maps.
All right, on. I just love that there's all these tools out there for us to explore nature, and you both did such a great job at showcasing just two of the many things that are out there. And audience, I hope that you're super excited, or this has inspired you to go out and start collecting real specimens, if you will, on these apps and learning a little bit more about them. But before we go, we want to say a really big last thank you to you, Claudia, and to you, Adam, for joining us here today, being so passionate about your work and sharing that passion with us. And of course, you audience out there, thank you for joining us today and hearing a little bit more about ways that you can get involved, learning about nature, and having fun out in nature. And if you'd like to join us for another event, we're on almost most social platforms that you can find Science Worlds on the Eventbrite, as well as Facebook and Twitter. And you can find out about other ways that you can join us and learn about these cool things. All right, thanks everyone. Until next time, happy exploring.